We want to thank everybody that is going to watch this video, and we are delighted to be here in presenting our small talk about the case study project. We're going to start with some background information and then move into the essentials of the guidelines of the generation of the case studies.
Lehman College's mission shares elements in line with this case study project. Also, the library's mission, vision, and value statements refer to open practice and community engagement. One of 25 City University of New York campuses, Lehman College is a senior college in the Bronx, serving the borough and region as an intellectual, economic, and cultural center. We are a liberal arts college serving a diverse student body of over 14,000 students, almost half of whom are first-generation college students.
The origins of our project is the combination of three different situations. First, an anecdote, which is that students struggle to connect with big companies like Coca-Cola, Amazon, Verizon, Google, and such. It is my experience that this is an obstacle in their learning. Second, a fact, research shows that 82% of the businesses fail within the first 3 years just because they do not know or they mismanage the working capital. Third, we also had a hope. We wanted to shed light on what our community was doing. Most of us walk our community without noticing what our businesses are. This way, we can also motivate the entrepreneurial spirit in our students.
Our project emphasizes pedagogy, access, and community. Existing business case study models are mostly subscription-based or focused on large companies outside of our community. We plan to work with local businesses to create cases that our students could relate to. Case study models include Harvard Business Case Studies, which are available to instructors outside of paywalls. They also focus on large companies. MIT's openly accessible cases also focus on large companies. The University of Texas School of Business has created some openly accessible case studies primarily focusing on larger businesses and limited to ethics cases. In this context, Professor Nunez-Torres and I met to imagine how we could build on a growing CUNY-wide OER textbook initiative to create another way that we could serve our students in our Bronx community with an openly accessible resource, filling an information gap within the classroom and in the local and global community.
We knew early that this could be a project that could grow exponentially. With that in mind, we created guidance for the instructors and also a structure for the creation of the case studies. We divided this into three phases. The first phase would be the consent forms and reaching out to the businesses and organization. The second stage will be the guidelines for the instructors in the creation of the case study and teaching notes and also their incentive to create it. And third, the editing and production, which will involve us in creating a theme for the typography and the graphs of the case study so they look professional.
Informed consent involves agreement about specific data to be shared, as well as agreements about whether we can store records such as interview, audio, or videotapes for a specified period of time. Consent forms involve stakeholders at the outset, defining parameters for the sharing of data and stories from involved small businesses. These are binding and are also an incentive for participants in that they respectfully define how information will be shared publicly. This process indicates to our collaborators that we recognize and appreciate that they allow us to take a look into their lives. The process also involves partners in the community who suggest possible participants. In our case, we work closely with the Small Business Development Center, which happens to be on our campus. Director Clarence Stanley and his colleagues were instrumental in getting us started with our project.
The purpose of the case study guidelines is twofold. First, to provide help to the instructors in order to let them know what is expected of the case study and teaching notes, but more importantly, to provide a structure for them to determine, so they can determine if their case study meet the objectives of the instruments required. For example, the classroom discussions, is this a problem-solving situation, the student engagement, and so on. The deliverables in the end are the case study where the situation that requires a decision is presented with this context, but also a teaching note in which we present suggestions for the future instructors on how to use the case study and its application. A summary of the case study, academic documents, important questions, analysis, and conclusion. When we are creating the case study, this is the document that we are presenting to our creators. We have guidance in it, such as what is the structure, what are the writing styles, what to think about when writing a case study, but also requirements that they have to fulfill between 3 and 20 pages, real situation, it requires a decision to be made. But also there is a section of self-evaluation so that when the creators finish the case study, they can evaluate that case study in its context. The creation of the case study as it is presented to the students is just one side of it. I will say that 80% of the effort goes to the creation of the teaching notes. This is where we create a map to the instructor, the future instructor, on how to navigate the case study, how to manage the classroom, the topics and learning objectives, the activities and trigger questions. Creating a case study is also creating a teaching note, and this requires 80% of the effort on creating the case study. We must make it clear to the instructors before they engage into this project. We have suggestions, we have requirements, we have a guidance, as we did with the case study guideline before.
Lehman instructors are sensitive to the economic situation of a large number of our students, so this already provides incentives to our faculty to create open access content for their required materials. Along with other OER creators, we imagine a time when there might be course releases or consistent mechanisms from academic institutions to financially compensate instructors who create open content. CUNY Open Education specialists McKinney and Coolidge published The Tenure Review Process Must Evolve, which explores ways in which faculty might be compensated in a systematic way for OER.
The other aspect of this stage are the visuals of the documents. For that purpose, we have worked with a visual communications designer that helped us create guidelines in terms of how the visuals will look for the case study. This is what we are presenting here, and we have used the Lehman College colors just because we are a Lehman College, but this could be adapted. However, we also have decided on the typography and color palette. With some exception, each school could adapt to their own colors. These guidelines will serve as a reminder for us in charge of this project that we are working with different areas of knowledge, and also we could keep the case studies with the same visual theme. What you're looking at here are the case studies that we have created so far. One for finance, authored by me, one for business law, authored by Mary Rogan, and one for environmental sciences, authored by Duran Fiag. Each case study has a subject matter, the date of creation, and a record number for us to keep track of the documents. Besides the case study, we also have the teaching note for each case. These teaching notes include the strategy on how to teach the case study for future instructors, but also, if warranted, the solution for the computations. You can notice that some of the creators have decided to include extra documents to help guide the instructors and students throughout the process. So what is next for our case study project? First is to obtain the feedback from the students when the instructors and creators use them in the classroom. Second is to invite everybody that wants to create a case study to join effort with us. And third, we are looking to include students in the future in the process of the creation of the case study.